This is Professor Denholtz. I'm going to be going over Lab 7, Problem 2. It's listed in the book as problem number 11. I'm sorry, in the PDF file as number 11. And there's essentially two doors here. And I'm going to start part 1 with just the door on the left. That's what we're going to start with. So I'm going to be drawing this here. And we're not going to worry about the other door quite yet. All right, so let's make this drawing. The first thing that I'm going to do is, even though it looks like there's just solid lines, out of habit, we always want to have our layer properties. So I'm going to open up the template file. And we're going to save this as a new name. So Lab 7, Problem 2. So there's a few things interesting going on here. Firstly, this has the architectural ticks. This is measured in feet and inches. The single quote is feet. The double is inches. There's no decimal places. And so we want to switch our dimension style to match this drawing. And so we're going to use the dim style command, which we talked about in class. And I'm going to make a new one. You can use the current ones. I think it just makes more sense to make a new one. That way you could go back to the defaults because you're not overwriting what the current default settings are. So I'm going to click new. Any name is fine. So I'm going to hit continue. And this is the dimension style manager. And here it kind of shows you how some drawings would come out. So for starters, we want to switch to an architectural tick. And so that's right over here in the arrowheads under symbols and arrows. We also want to go over the primary units. We want to switch to engineering, which is going to be feet and inches. It's hard to tell over here because the sample that they give you is really small, but this is feet and inches. You can see over here that it has feet and inches with the single quote and the double quote. And we're not going to have a decimal here. They don't seem to have any decimals here either, so that's perfectly fine. I'm going to click OK, and I'm going to click Close. And this should be fine from our dimension styles. There are other things that you could do with units, just to point out. From the Red A drawing utilities and units, this is something else that you could be doing. But I'm going to be just sticking with what I've done so far. And the first thing is I'm going to draw a line that's 6 feet 8 inches and vertically. So I'm going to turn on ortho. And so everything here is in inches. And so if you go through the Red A, I believe that's where you could switch it to be like feet and inches for input. But I need to do this calculation. And we know that there's 12 inches in 1 foot. And so 6 feet is going to have 72 inches. And there's also 8 more inches here. So 6 times 12 plus 8 is equal to 72 plus 8, or 80 inches. So let's get our door. So that's the frame of the door. And I'm not going to do much with dimensions, but I do want to show one thing here before I move on. So if I were to dimension this, and this is pretty small, as a reminder, you can use dim scale to change the dimension heights. The first thing I want to point out is that this is showing feet and inches. So again, I put in 80 because that's the conversion of feet and inches to inches, and the input in AutoCAD, the default, is on inches. You could change it, but I'm just going to do the calculation because it's just multiplying feet by 12, so it's fairly simple. But here, you want to make sure, and this is on the default, so I don't think it's going to be an issue. But if you go in the properties, For later, I'm not going to get into why right now. You want to make sure that you have associative dimensions. And we talked about associative dimensions in class. Basically, they're dimensions that change when the object changes. And but we'll see that the usage of that later. And so I just wanted to point out a few of these things about the dimensions. Now, as usual in my videos, I'm not going to be doing the dimensioning. I'm going to leave that to you. But I did just want to point that out. So that gave us our height of the rectangle. Now we want to go across. So 2 feet and 6 inches is 2 times 12 plus 6. And so 24 plus 6 should be 30. So we want to go 30 inches over. Then we want to go 80 down again because it's a rectangle. And then we want to connect our door over here. And so that is the start of our door. And let's see. There's a whole bunch of different ways to do the stuff that's inside the door. I'm going to do a little bit of what's most intuitive for me and what I think tends to be a little bit faster. And so I'm going to be using multiple offsets. And it seems that this line here lines up with this line, and they're both 6 inches from this edge. And so I'm going to just use offset, and I'm going to do it a distance of 6. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do the same thing. We have an offset of 6 inch for this side as well. Then we're offsetting 6 inches to this one over here, and also 6 inches to this one over here. And so we can use the same thing. Then we could do another offset. So if we wanted to offset this would be 3 times 12 is 36, plus 8 is 44, plus 6 is 50. So we could do an offset of 50 from here. So let's do that. And so this one is going to be 50. Just to double check that, it's 3 times 12 is 36, plus 8 is 44, plus 6 is 50. So that should be fine. And so that's this line over here. And then this one, if I were to measure it upwards from this edge, would be 6, plus 1 times 12 plus 6, and that would be 24. So 6 plus 12 plus 6 is 24. So let's do another offset. 24. And now I'm going to want to do some trimming. So that way this rectangle becomes its own thing and this rectangle becomes its own thing. And so let's see if I can quickly do that. You know what? I actually think it would be faster. I probably should have put these on a construction layer and then made a rectangle connecting them. And so I'm going to see if I could quickly make that change by highlighting them. And then I'll be able to just hide them nice and easily. There we go. And so now I'm just going to make a rectangle back on my solid layer. So I'm back on solid layer. And I'm just going to make a rectangle here. Okay. Okay, good. So just to see what it looks like right now, we have the start of our windows. We need to go inwards, and this one is 1.5 inches in each direction, it looks like, and that seems like an offset to me. So let's do an offset here of 1.5, and it says typical, so to me that means it's going to be the same for all of these. So from this rectangle to this one to this one, for this one to this one, and this one to this one. Oh, you know what? Actually, it's 1 for the first one and 1.5 for the second one. I didn't see that, so we're going to start with the first one and do an offset. I think this froze. Yeah, my AutoCAD is not moving right now. All right, I'm going to pause this video and I'll come back for part 2 when my AutoCAD stops freezing.